What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative, where today I will be going over my July monthly wrap-up. Now, before I get started talking about this stack of books right here, I do want to take a moment to thank the sponsors of today's video, the patrons of the Nerdy Narrative channel. Because of the support that you give the channel, I am able to pay for all of the things needed to keep everything up and running and making these videos possible. So thank you so much for doing what you do. I really appreciate it. Now let's talk about these books. First up on that list is Midnight in the City of the Carrion Kid by James G. Carlson. This is a novella that I absolutely love. The writing style was absolutely amazing. The premise of this one is there is a city that exists between life and death, the in-between. And let's say you fall into a coma. You're not dead, but you're not exactly alive. Your soul goes to the in-between to wait and see what's going to happen. Now, this city was a beautiful city until one day something happened to a child that brought its soul there. This child had been possessed by a demon, and so the demon piggybacked on that child's soul and has taken over the city that's in between. Our main character wakes up and finds himself in the in-between. He has no idea where he is. He knows he's not in Kansas anymore because this place is terrifying. It's so dark and overrun with terrors now that this demon is in control. He's very fortunate to be found by a group of souls that have been hiding from all of the terrors and the demon's reign, and then they decide it's time to try and do something about this demon. That's your premise in a nutshell, and that's what I would call a surface story. To me, the real story was the main character's development from start to finish over this novella, and I absolutely loved it. This is one that is a truly beautiful story to read, and I love the author's writing style so much that I have another novella by them on my August TBR, so you're going to hear more about James G. Carlson in the future. Next up is Eve of Snows by L. James Rice, book 1 in their Sundering the Gods series. This was one of my SPFBO reads. I had a fantastic time with this one. I loved the world building. I love that the different factions of clans and priests, they all know something is coming. They're not sure what. Well, some of them know what because they're the cause of it, but the terrors that this author has written into this story, I loved all the wrong characters in this one. And I don't want to tell you who those characters are because I don't want you to know why you shouldn't like them, or I don't know, maybe you should. Like, I still love them, even though, no, I'm not going to tell you. It's a spoiler. I mentioned in my weekly reading wrap-up that there was a discrepancy between the audiobook and the Kindle book, which you would never know if you're not an immersion reader. But I mentioned it and I spoke with the author, and what happened is later they took a novella about a character in this world and folded it into the book, which was great. I loved that character being in the book. It just really added some glue to different sections of the story that I just thought were amazing. So I 100% support folding that novella in, but the audiobook was already in existence and you have to deal with contracts and pay to get it redone and all of that fun stuff, which the author is definitely going to do in the future. So if this is one that you were interested in reading after hearing me talk about it in July, definitely go with the ebook. And I guess I should have also mentioned at the start of this video, I do have written reviews for all of these books on my website. I'll have that linked in the description box down below if you want to read a little bit more information. I just want to keep it brief for the wrap up so it's not 2 hours long. Next up, I listened to the audiobook of The Law by Jim Butcher, narrated by Jim Butcher, who did a great job for the most part. I just didn't like the voice he gave to Bob. Everything other than that was perfectly fine by me, but Bob's voice just, it wasn't doing it. Now, this novella takes place after the last novel in the series, which was Battleground. In my opinion, Jim Butcher used this to sort of round off Battleground. I was left really angry after Battleground, and I'm appeased now. I see that after Battleground, a book named Battleground, you can kind of deduce, if you haven't read the series, that a battle took place. And there's always going to be casualties and big battles. So this novella is pretty much Harry grieving for his losses and getting back on track by going back to work. And we do that by revisiting the start of the Dresden Files by a monster of the week or a case of the week, where Harry takes a case and solves it, and then that's that. Now, I do think this novella was meant to introduce a character that I feel is going to be really important in the last few books of this series, That's my opinion. If you've read it, let me know down in the comments. We can chat about it. Just make sure if you're going to say anything spoilery, put spoilers and then hit enter like 10 times so no one sees anything that they shouldn't be seeing if they're still working their way through the series. I did enjoy it, but is it going to break into one of my top 5 favorite Dresdens? No, I don't think it was meant to. I think it was just meant to bridge the gap. I do know that Jim changed the order of the books. We were supposed to be getting Mirror Mirror next, but he said it just didn't make sense because of some timelines and what happened. So the novella might have been needed to make that swapping of titles around work better. I guess we'll find out when the next book comes out. The next book that I completed is a collection of short stories by Michael Pico called Corpse Honey, a banquet of gruesome tales. I absolutely love this collection. It was a top tier read for me. I did do a dedicated full review of the collection. I gave a few thoughts about each story included in the collection, which I will link in the cards above, also in the description box down below. So I won't take up time here talking about it. You can watch that video if you're interested, and we'll just keep moving through the books. We're now into the physical reads, and first at the top of the stack is The Warrior by Stephen Aryan. This is book 2 in the Quest for Heroes duology. This one is out in the UK August 9th. For US residents, it'll be out on August 16th. This book was so good. Completely different from the first book in the series. Kel Crescia returns. He is now the king of Albany. He has everything he could possibly want: money, power, fame, a family. But he's miserable. So when a friend shows up to call in a favor, Kel drops everything to go. Just no hesitation whatsoever. He just, I'm out. And he goes off on another adventure. Perhaps adventure is the wrong word because it is fraught with danger. It almost feels more perilous than what he faced the previous 2 times he had to go to the frozen north. The funny thing about this one, Kel is not my favorite character in this one. His wife is. It sounds weird, I know, but it is fantastic. I'm laughing at this next one here in the stack. I read Hilda Hilst with my dog eyes as a buddy read with my friend Una from the Codex Cantina. All the other books by Hilda Hilst that Una has read and talked about on his channel sound amazing. This one was a bit of a mess for me, and Una agrees that it was kind of a 3-star read. And the more I think about it, I have to wonder if the author intentionally wrote it to be as confusing and strange as it is, because the main character does go mad. And when we meet the guy, he's already on the road to losing his mind, and he just devolves over the course of the story, but it's written in his perspective, like we're in his head, and just so much of it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to give her another shot and try something else by her, but I would not recommend, if you've not read Hilda Hilst, who is compared to Clarice Lispector, don't start here. And then next here on the stack, I read The Final Empire, the first book in Misborn series by Brandon Sanderson. Now, if you're paying attention, this was not on my TBR for July, but the hold came in from Libby for the audiobook so I could immersion read. Truth be told, I was just going to audiobook it, but I fell in love with the story so much that I ended up picking this book up and just finishing it out. It was wonderful. Just off reading The Final Empire. I haven't read the entire trilogy yet, so I'll revisit this after I read the trilogy. I still like Warbreaker and the Stormlight Archives better. But like I said, we'll see what happens after I finish the trilogy. I'm very excited to keep going with this series. I love the magic system. Brandon Sanderson really takes the time to patiently teach us these complex magic systems he likes to create, and I don't know how he comes up with this stuff. I honestly don't. I love the magic system. Of course, we've got some political scheming going on between the noble houses, the Lord Ruler, and the slaves. You know, it's not a trope we haven't read before. One thing Sanderson does for this trope that makes him stand out, in my opinion, is creating inspirational characters. Moments that you never forget. Moments that inspire you to be a better person. Oh my gosh, so good. Next up in the pile was a surprise hit for me, The Last Smile in Sunder City. It's the first book in Luke Arnold's Fetch Phillips archives. Now, the reason why I say it was a surprise hit, it's an urban fantasy, no magic. I'm like, how am I gonna like this? Because all of the urban fantasies I've read in the past had magic. Now, this world did have magic at one time, but there was an event that happened 6 years before this story takes place called the Coda, where magic was destroyed. And what we're reading about here is what happens to the magical beings after their magic is gone. Like, they didn't die because magic died, just their ability to do magic, the magical parts of them went away. Vampires no longer fed on blood. Sirens no longer sung songs that lured mortals in. You know, wizards and witches couldn't cast spells anymore. But our main character is Fetch Phillips, and he's a man for hire. You got something that needs doing, no matter what it is, you can hire Fetch Phillips to do it. Now, in this one, he does take on a case where he's trying to find a missing professor. During the course of trying to locate the professor, chasing leads, Fetch runs into a few more unanswered questions that he really wants to know the answers to, whether it's connected to the case or not. Of course, in the beginning, when I'm told that there used to be magic, but it was gone now, I was hoping to get the story of what happened, and the author did work that in the form of flashbacks, which I really enjoyed. I thought he did a great job, and I will be reading book 2 in the month of August, so I liked it enough to immediately keep going with the trilogy, and that's always a good sign. Next on the stack is a huge hit for me, The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This one was voted for our July pick for the Wine and Crime Book Club. There is a live show that took place discussing this one on the channel. I'll have it linked above, down below, that you can check out if you want more information. I always try to start the book club streams out with a non-spoiler summary of the book, and then I will ask all of the hosts that are on the live stream, all of the people in the chat that read it, to give their ratings. So if you're trying to decide if this one is one you want to pick up, hopefully that can help you make your decision. But from what I recall, from everyone who read the book as part of the Wine and Crime Book Club, nobody gave it less than 4 stars. It was amazing. My favorite thriller that I have read maybe all year. I'll have to go back and look, but it's definitely the best one of the Wine and Crime Book Club so far, at least in my opinion. Here is another hit for me. My other SPFBO read for the month was The Lady of the Mark by Alex Hansen, which is the first book in their The Men of the Mark series, which they told me book 2 is coming soon. I can't wait. And as you can see, I have a physical copy here in my hands. And the reason why I have a physical copy is because I purchased it immediately upon completing the book. It was that good. I'm talking within 5 minutes of me finishing this book on my Kindle. I was up here on one screen, I was ordering the book on Amazon. On the other screen, I was writing my review. It is amazing. I do believe it is considered a fantasy romance. The romance part, if you're thinking it's just all sexy time, it's not. There is some sexy time in it, but poor Shayla, it's over very, very quickly. So we have a love story. We have this girl who's joined this guild of men where there's never been any women before. So you can imagine how that dynamic is changing and how rough that must be. Then we have this civil unrest that has caused the divide in this territory between the East and the West. The Men of the Mark are trying to heal that rift. Those that oppose them definitely don't want that to happen because that's going to interfere with them getting their pockets lined. It's a fantastic story. Now, if that is what fantasy romances are this day and age, I am on board. I'm definitely going to look into getting some more. But in that vein of reading a genre that I don't typically pick up, I read a dystopian novel around consumerism and capitalism, but it was so good. I know that probably made it sound intellectual and stuffy. It is not. It's actually quite humorous, but also serious and an interesting look at things. It takes place 2007 or 2008. It's right before that big financial crisis. And our main character is Leonard Lundell, who works for a PR firm. He's a crisis management director. Basically means he's in the reputation business. If you or your company has some sort of scandal happen, his job is to come in and manage the media to basically flip the script and make it work in favor of you instead of harming your business. And he gets an opportunity of a lifetime. This big firm has something happen. Their normal guy is like out of pocket. Leonard steps in and saves the day. But in doing so, he has to work with some of the employees of this company. And one of those employees discovers Leonard's secret, which is eating inanimate objects. I loved every page, whether I was laughing or whether it was making me take a good hard look at social media and made me really think about how social media is used these days. Through all of the hilarity of Leonard's condition and the lady who finds out what he's doing and blackmails him, but not for money, there's also this really serious vein of the story that was fascinating to watch unfold. But I absolutely loved it, and this one comes out on August 23rd. It is The Appetite Factory by John Gingrich. I just realized I've talked all this time about this book and I never once told y'all the author or the title. Oh well, if you're watching this, you're a reader and you probably read it off the screen. Let's talk about The Empire of Gold. I finished S.A. Chakraborty's The Devabah trilogy. This one is it my favorite? It's my favorite. It is my favorite. It was so good. It was the perfect ending. It was not the ending I wanted. Let me just be upfront. I wanted a whole lot of different things. I got some of what I wanted. I did not want to pay the cost that I had to pay to get those things, but it was the perfect ending for the trilogy. The author definitely knew best, and I am just the courage to do the things that you need to do to make something the best that it can be. Much respect, much respect. I love it. Even though I wanted something different, I loved it. So this one, if you haven't read the first two, I don't need to be telling you about the third one because it would contain spoilers, but it's so good. And then my last two that I have here are both by Ronald McGilvery. I read James's Journey to Dreamland, and then I finished his short story collection Tales from the Parkland, which also had a bonus novella at the back called Harmony. And like I mentioned earlier, I do have full written reviews for all of these books, and in the written review for this one, I talk about each of the stories and the novella. So if you want to check that out and get a feel for all of the stories and what types of horror subgenres they are, again, my website will be linked in the description box down below so you can check that out. I absolutely loved it, but if you are a big chicken like me, do not read that one at night. Just don't. Just don't. Ronald McGilvery did something with some of these stories that I accuse Stephen King of, taking things that seemed harmless, childhood memories, and twisting them and making them nightmares. And then James's Journey to Dreamland. Now this one is safe to read at night, and it is a children's bedtime story, but adults will enjoy it just as much. It's a very heartwarming story that I feel would just be a delight as a parent to read and experience with your child together. It's about James, who's an ordinary little boy who lives with his mom and his dog, except that James can't sleep anymore. His mom took him to several doctors. They tried all the tests. They just have no idea what to do in order to help James sleep. Until one night when a magical train makes a stop in James's closet to take him to Dreamland. Oh, it's such a good story. This is one I'll absolutely read again because it's just so full of whimsy and imagination and good life lessons. Such a good read. And that is the end of the stack. Those are all of the things that I read during the month of July. I read a lot. I'm kind of shocked. I don't know how I did that. Favorite book of the month. I have been struggling ever since I realized I needed to film my monthly wrap up for July, and I was looking at the list going, how am I going to pick a favorite? Because I have so many that I love. I'm just going to have to continue to let these ruminate for a few more days and see if I can decide on a favorite for the month of July. This may be the first month where I don't have one clear winner. I might have a 3-4-way tie. I'll let you guys know as soon as I figure it out. But with that, I am going to let you guys go and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me here today to listen to all of the books that I loved during the month of July. July was a hit. There are so many books here. I think I actually loved all of them. There is nothing. Okay, Hilda Hilst, she was a 3-star read. But everybody else was 4 and 5 stars. Everybody else. You just can't be mad when you have a reading month like that. How about y'all? Were y'all able to narrow it down to a favorite book of the month for July? If you were, please drop the title down in the comments below and let me see what you loved to read last month. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see y'all in the next one.